So let me just show you. I was watching last night Don Lemon's show on CNN. And I go, let's just go in at any moment. You know, they're going to be talking about the impeachment and they're going to be talking about it in bullshit ways. So we put on Don Lemon and it was unbelievable. And I knew I should have downloaded the video at the moment, but I didn't. I was laying down. I was a little high already. And I didn't feel like getting up and doing it. Here's what I saw watching Don Lemon talk about the impeachment. He brought on those 3 people who were pro-impeachment. He showed them. And he didn't show this guy. He didn't show the 4th guy who dissented. Even though this guy's a regular on CNN and MSNBC. By the way, CNN or MSNBC couldn't get this guy yesterday. I didn't see it. But God, no, I don't watch their coverage wall to wall. But I did see a panel with Jake Tapper. And he had about 80 people on this panel. Not this guy. Why is that important? Because watch what this guy has to say. By the way, this guy regular. I know who this guy is because I see him on CNN all the time. I couldn't get him yesterday, but watch what he says.
Yet here we are. The elements are strikingly similar.
So he's talking about the Bill Clinton impeachment hearings in 1999, and he's saying, "Here we are."
The elements are strikingly similar. The intense rancor and rage of the public debate is the same. It's the atmosphere that the framers anticipated. The stifling intolerance of opposing views is the same. I'd like to start, therefore, perhaps incongruously, by stating an irrelevant fact. I'm not a supporter of President Trump. I voted against him. My personal views of President Trump are as irrelevant to my impeachment testimony as they should be to your impeachment vote. President Trump will not be our last president, and what we leave in the wake of this scandal will shape our democracy for generations to come. I'm concerned about lowering impeachment standards to fit a paucity of evidence and an abundance of anger. I believe this impeachment not only fails to satisfy the standard of past impeachments, but would create a dangerous precedent for future impeachments. My testimony lays out.
Is he crazy? So who's crazy? Him or that woman, Carlin? One of them has to be crazy, right? One of them has to be, at the very least, completely partisan and blinded. Does he sound partisan to you? He said he doesn't support Donald Trump, didn't vote for him. Shouldn't even matter. So now he starts to talk about the other impeachment trials I think that's what he's going to talk about.
The history of impeachment from early English cases to colonial cases to the present day. The early impeachments were raw political exercises using fluid definitions of criminal and non-criminal acts. When the framers met in Philadelphia, they were quite familiar with impeachment and its abuses, including the Hastings case, which was discussed in the convention, a case that was still pending for trial in England. Unlike the English impeachments, the American model was more limited, not only in its application to judicial and executive officials, but its grounds. The framers rejected a proposal to add maladministration because Madison objected that so vague a term would be equivalent to a tenure during the pleasure of the Senate. In the end, various standards that had been used in the past were rejected. Corruption, obtaining office by improper means, betraying the trust of a foreign power, negligence, perfidy, peculation, and oppression. Perfidy or lying and peculation, self-dealing, are particularly relevant to our current controversy. My testimony explores the impeachment cases of Nixon, Johnson, and Clinton. The closest of these 3 cases is to the 1868 impeachment of Andrew Johnson. It is not a model or an association that this committee should relish.
So he's saying that this current impeachment procedure most closely resembles this 1868 impeachment. That's what he's saying. Mm-hmm. So, and he's saying that that's no comparison that you should be proud of. And here's why.
Case, a group of opponents of the president's called the Radical Republicans created a trapdoor crime in order to impeach the president. They even defined it as a high misdemeanor. There was another shared aspect besides the atmosphere of that impeachment and also the unconventional style of the two presidents. And that shared element is speed. This impeachment would rival the Johnson impeachment as the shortest in history, depending on how one counts the relevant days. Now, there are three distinctions when you look at these, or the three commonalities when you look at these past cases. All involved established crimes. This would be the first impeachment in history where there would be considerable debate and, in my view, not compelling evidence of the commission of a crime. Second is the abbreviated.
So he just said this would be the first time you're going to impeach a guy without a crime. Because you haven't proved there's no, he's saying paucity of evidence, which means there's a lacking of evidence to prove that the president committed a crime. He said this would be the first time. Second
is the abbreviated period of this investigation, which is problematic and puzzling. This is a facially incomplete and inadequate record in order to impeach a president. Allow me to be candid in my closing remarks because we have limited time. We are living in the very period described by Alexander Hamilton, a period of agitated passions. I get it. You're mad. The president's mad. My Republican friends are mad. My Democratic friends are mad. My wife is mad. My kids are mad.
What about your dog?
Even my dog seems mad. And Luna's a golden doodle, and they don't get mad. So we're all mad. Where has that taken us? Will a slipshod impeachment make us less mad? Will it only invite an invitation for the madness to follow every future administration? That is why this is wrong. It's not wrong because President Trump is right. His call was anything but perfect. It's not wrong because the House has no legitimate reason to investigate the Ukrainian controversy. It's not wrong because we're in an election year. There is no good time for an impeachment. No, it's wrong because this is not how you impeach an American president. This case is not a case of the unknowable. It's a case of the peripheral. We have a record of conflicts, defenses that have not been fully considered, unsubpoenaed witness with material evidence. To impeach a president on this record would expose every future president to the same type of inchoate impeachment. Principle often takes us to a place we would prefer not to be. That was the place 7 Republicans found themselves in the Johnson trial, when they saved a president from acquittal that they despised. For generations, they've been celebrated as profiles of courage. Senator Edmund Ross said it was like looking down into his open grave. And then he jumped
because he
didn't have any alternative.
So what he's describing are the 7 Republicans who stopped that impeachment because they knew it was wrong, or tried to. Because they knew it was wrong. They had to stand up for the rule of law, even though it was against the guy they despised. Which sounds like what he's doing right now. I'm no fan of Trump, didn't vote for him, but I have to stand up because if you let this happen to him, now this is going to happen forever to every president. That's his argument.
It's easy to celebrate those people from the distance of time and circumstance. In the age of rage, it's appealing to listen to those saying, forget the definitions of crimes, just do it. Like this is some impulse buy Nike sneaker. You can certainly do that. You can declare the definitions of crimes alleged are immaterial and just an exercise of politics, not the law. However, those legal definitions and standards, which I've addressed in my testimony, are the very thing that divide rage from reason.
So what he's saying is, you want to just make up new definitions of what a crime is for the president? You want to make up new definitions of what bribery is? You want to make up new definitions of what a quid pro quo is? You want to make up new definitions of what an impeachable offense is? He's saying you can't do that because the rule of law is what separates that kind of rage and madness from impartiality and reason.
This all brings up to me, and I will conclude with this, of a scene from A Man for All Seasons with Sir Thomas More when his son-in-law, William Roper, suggested that More was putting the law ahead of morality. He said More would give the devil the benefit of the law. When More asks Roper, would he instead cut a great road through the law to get after the devil? Roper proudly declares, yes. I'd cut down every law of England to do that. More responds, and when the last law is cut down and the devil turned around on you, where would you hide, Roper? All the laws being flat. He said, this country is planted thick with laws from coast to coast, man's laws, not God's. And if you cut them down and you're just the man to do it, do you really think you could stand upright in the winds that would blow then? And he finished by saying, yes, I'd give the devil the benefit of the law for my own sake. So I will conclude with this. Both sides of this controversy have demonized the other to justify any measure in their defense, much like Roper. Perhaps that's the saddest part of all of this. We have forgotten the common article of faith that binds each of us to each other in our Constitution. However, before we cut down the trees so carefully planted by the framers, I hope you will consider what you will do when the wind blows again, perhaps for a Democratic president. Where will you stand then when all the laws being flat? Thank you again.
That's some pretty heavy-duty stuff from a guy I'm sure you recognize from his appearances on CNN and MSNBC. Now, if I said that, they'd call me crazy. When he says it, they just ignore that he says it. And again, that's not a Trump supporter. Guess what that is? That's a Constitution supporter. That's a guy who supports the Constitution. He's not a partisan hack like that law professor, that woman is. So I don't expect you to be. Hopefully, we will see him. I'm sure Anderson Cooper has I'm sure he has his private cell phone number. I would love to see. I'm sure Chris Hayes also has his cell phone number. I would love to see this guy being interviewed. I would love to see his. So that's how you know that the news media is letting you down on purpose. So when some people have said to me, I really think Chris Hayes and Rachel Maddow believe Russiagate. I really think they believe it. And I said, well, if they really believed it, they would bring on people to debate them over it and give a counter narrative. But they don't do that because they know they got no legs to stand on, and they know they're pushing propaganda, which means they know they're liars. Right? You know who really believes it? Cenk Uygur. Why? Because he brought on Glenn Greenwald. He brought on Aaron Mate. He gave me a show. That's a guy who really believes it. You know who does it? Rachel Maddow, Chris Hayes, Jake Tapper, Anderson Cooper. They never brought on a counter narrative. Never brought someone on to debate them. And here's this guy who I think everybody respects, laying it out that this is a partisan exercise. This is a partisan exercise. And if you want to and if you want to change the definition of what a bribery is and change the definition of what an impeachable offense is, well, what happens when it comes for you? That's what's the point of that story. If you want to cut all the laws down so you can go get the devil, in this case being Donald Trump, what happens when the winds start to blow against you? And now there's no laws left to protect you when it's a Democratic president. So that's what he's saying. So that guy's being rational. He's saying we're all angry, we're all mad, we're all want to get, everybody's foaming at the mouth at Donald Trump or his accusers. And he's saying what saves us from that is the law. And the Democrats don't give a shit about the law. They want to break it all down so they can get the devil, which is Donald Trump. That's what Jonathan Turley is saying. Let me throw it to my panel.
I think the only way this whole thing would have gotten better is as soon as Jonathan Turley was done, Carlin came back out and she's like, yeah, John, that's great. Guys, what's the difference between Donald Trump and a cake? Come on. Play along.
Well, it also just like all of these Democrats who were screaming witch hunt for the Kenneth Starr thing.
Yes.
Where are they?
They're the ones prosecuting Trump now.
It's insane. Well, that was a witch hunt. When they prosecute your guy...
No, then it's about no one's above the law.
No one's above the law.
Remember Bill Clinton? They admitted Bill Clinton lied under oath.
Yes.
They admitted it while he was president, lied under oath. Then the Republicans were like, rule the law. Nobody's above the law. And the Democrats are saying, we don't care. Nobody cared about that. We knew he was a philanderer and we voted for him twice anyway. That's what the Democrats were saying back then. And now what the Republicans say is, yeah, it might not have been a right thing to do, but it's not an impeachable offense. That's what which is what the Democrats were saying. Sure, what Clinton did wasn't right, but it's not an impeachable offense.
It just shows you how ridiculous this two-party system is.
And that's exactly what Jonathan Turley was saying. This is just like that. I remember that. Same kind of environment.
Well, you know, I think we've all taken a speech class at one point, right? And like there's supposed to be certain hooks to the speech, you know. The way he created this by saying, I'm mad. My Democratic friends are mad. My Republican friends are mad. My wife is mad.
Right.
My dog is mad.
Everybody's
because
mad.
what he decided to do is to really connect with that emotional thing that is really the
Driving
seed
this.
of all of this.
Yes.
And I thought that was so sharp of him to do that instead of being too academic. Mm-hmm. And guess who they won't show? They won't show us Professor Turley.
I know.
They won't show us on mainstream media this guy's takedown about why we shouldn't be doing an impeachment.
Has anyone else been watching? In the room? Anybody else been watching the mainstream coverage of this testimony yesterday? Nobody.
I haven't seen this guy.
Okay.
I haven't seen this guy anywhere. I've watched a little bit of the coverage of it. I haven't heard of this guy till right now.
Like to me, this would be the bombshell.
Right. This would be the thing. Like even if you really want to hang Trump, but if you're trying to do a decent job, you would go, well, let's listen to this side and at least introduce this side and then ask your panel, what do you think? But when your panel's a bunch of millionaires paid to distract the American people with professional wrestling like this, then this is what we get.
And so if Bernie becomes president and then he wants to pull us out of our foreign wars, they're going to call him. They're going to call him a Russian and impeach him, saying he's doing Russia's bidding.
Yes.
Well, he did go to Russia.
He did go to Russia. We have pictures of him in Russia.
Shirtless.
He was shirtless.
And he was in a cluster. Just saying.
That is exactly what they will do. Is they will say Bernie Sanders a Russian or whoever the Democratic president is who wants to get us out of a foreign war. They go, that's what Russia wants.
And you'll see Democrats and Republicans, if Bernie becomes president, he wants to end all these wars. You'll see both parties line up to try to impeach him because.
Yeah, and by the way, Hillary Clinton already calling Bernie a Russian. And it's not going to come from the Republicans calling Bernie a Russian. It's going to come from the Democrats, the war hawk, warmongering Democrats. And who are they? Everybody who's a Democrat, except for maybe 5 people. That's who's going to oppose Bernie Sanders and call him a Russian. The Democrats. They're already doing it. Hillary Clinton just called Bernie Sanders a Russian on Howard Stern. And they want to get Trump on obstruction because the Democrats they have subpoenaed people in his cabinet. And he's like, no, don't go. And so he's appealed to the courts to say, do I have to honor this subpoena? The Democrats are calling that obstruction, to the point where they want to impeach him over that. Here's what Jonathan Turley says about that.
President Trump has gone to Congress, to the courts. He's allowed to do that. We have 3 branches, not 2.
Right.
I can't emphasize this enough, and I'll say it just one more time. If you impeach a president, if you make a high crime and misdemeanor out of going to the courts, it is an abuse of power. It's your abuse of power. You're doing precisely what you're criticizing the president for doing. We have a third branch that deals with conflicts of the other two branches. And what comes out of there and what you do with it is the very definition of legitimacy. President Trump.
Wow.
He's giving them a lesson in how the Constitution and our government actually works. We have three branches of government, the executive, legislature, and what the Congress is trying to do, what the Democrats are trying to do, is say that our branch of government trumps everyone else's. No, there's also the courts get to weigh in. The judicial, right? So they get to decide between the conflict of the executive branch and the legislative. They'll be the arbiters. They'll decide. And what he just said, when they give their answer, that's the truth. And if Trump using the courts to be the arbiter of what's right and wrong between him and the other branch of government, if you make that action an impeachable offense, you're wrecking the Constitution, you're wrecking the whole... That's what he's saying. And so when the Democrats put on this impeachment, and the whole reason they're putting on this impeachment, and make no mistake about it, the reason why they did Russiagate and they're impeaching Donald Trump is because they can't actually resist what he's doing. What he's doing is fulfilling the needs of the donor class and the oligarchs. That's what Trump is doing. So they can't oppose him on that. So they have to do all this shit. That's why they're doing this, because Nancy Pelosi is never going to offer you something to get off the couch to vote for. Chuck Schumer is never going to break up the banks so you can get a decent loan. Chuck Schumer is never going to stop the wars. They're never going to oppose Trump on the stuff that we want them to oppose Trump on. They give him more money for the military as they say he's a traitor to our country. They give him $80 billion more, enough to end homelessness and send everybody to college for free. So that's why, don't make no mistake why this is happening. This is happening because of the corruption inside the Democratic Party. What do you mean, Jimmy? I mean, they're so corrupt they can't offer people anything to vote for, so they have to do show trials like this, which is garbage. Because Adam Schiff is garbage. Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer are garbage. MSNBC is garbage. And anybody who goes on MSNBC and doesn't tell them they're garbage is also garbage. And that's why Sean Hannity is able to do this. It's a disaster for the Democrats. You're handing the Republicans and Trump a gift, another victory. Come see our live show. We're going to be in Honolulu on December 27th. We'll be in Portland, Oregon, and then we go to Tempe, Arizona, San Jose, California, Sacramento, Miami. Go to jimmydorecomedy.com for a link for all the tickets for all our live shows coming to a town near you, and become a patron or support the Jimmy Dore Show. We give you hours of bonus material every week. Go to jimmydorecomedy.com, become a premium member. Thanks for your support.